We're going to talk about it. The show starts with you wrestling Triple H in a Royal Rumble qualifying match. Shane is the special guest referee, and Shane is going to fast count you to give Hunter the win. Hunter's not happy and decides to give you a bit of a New Year's gift and pedigrees him into the mat. And then you go ahead and lock in an abdominal stretch on Shane to try to force Vince to give you a match with The Rock for the title.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned on the other channel, they're doing such a big job of promoting their big match with Nash and Goldberg. And you wrote in your book, I knew Vince's corporation and DX had kind of taken me in as their little buddy would be surrounding the ring. And I wanted to make sure they didn't fight until the time was right. I'd seen way too many similar situations end up in disaster because of an overzealous ringside onlooker. And I wanted to make sure that the momentous occasion didn't suffer a similar fate. I had barely even a chance to wish The Rock good luck when his music played. And although the situations were completely different, I felt just like I had before my King of the Deathmatch finale in Japan. I just wanted to get through it. Is that the way you remember it, really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you gave me the refresher. But if I wrote it that way, and when I wrote it, it would have been just a year after the fact, right? I did most of the writing, it finished up in summer of 99. So yeah, I'll go with my own memory at that time. First of all, when you say abdominal stretch, it sounds kind of wimpy, but the abdominal stretch is an offshoot of the amateur wrestling guillotine cross body ride, because I needed to find a hold that worked, that is legit, that looked legit, that would allow me to hold a microphone and talk. It's not easy to do that. And so I mentioned on TV, I said, here's a little something that Coach Jim McGonigal taught me. And he was my high school wrestling coach, who had actually known for years earlier before I took up amateur wrestling. And I was a babysitter to his kids. He's a guy I actually did a public speaking piece on as a college freshman, as the person I looked up to the most, because he battled back from leukemia and was a real great guy, great dad, great coach. And by that point, he was retired from coaching wrestling. I believe he was coaching golf at a different high school. And he told me he got more recognition in the days that followed that episode of Raw than he did in 25 or 20 years of coaching. So I was glad to throw that in. And I was glad to show a little bit of amateur scientific wrestling knowledge, but it worked. Shane sold the heck out of it, and Rock and I really did not have a chance to say anything but good luck. And by that time, I think we trusted each other to act and react. And I don't think it will go down in the history books as one of the great title matches of all time, but I'm a moments guy. I really am. I'll take the moments over the matches any day. In a best case scenario, have them both at the same time. But this was moments. Really, there were some things that you could never predict, like when I hit the stairs and they ended up tipping over and falling on my head, and then Rock wore me out with the chair which just made a great cacophonous racket and didn't really hurt me. But it's nothing that was ever practiced. It's nothing that I've seen done unintentionally before or since, and just added to that aspect of realism. I think it came across as being a pretty realistic struggle.
There's lots of discussion about the way wrestling used to be and the way it is today. I want to recap something you wrote here, because I think it really sums up what you just said. You wrote, we had engaged in better bouts before, and we would engage in better in the future, but this night was special. Too many wrestlers think the secret of a great match is to line up as many great moves as possible and run them off A to Z. That may be great for them, but it takes out the factors that make the match turn into magic: emotion and spontaneity. Our title match may have been lacking in choreography, but it was filled with emotion and spontaneity. And as a result, it felt magical as it unfolded.
Yeah, I'm going to stand by that. I think we've talked about that in a variety of different ways, and I'm still going with the magic over the big moves. And That's my one continual knock on the current product is that fans have been conditioned to think there's only one way to have a great match. And if you don't hit big moves with ultra close false finishes, that you're not having one of those. So I honestly, I just don't think physically I could have a move set that could compete with the top guys of this era. But it wasn't as important as the spontaneity and the willingness to believe in a little bit of wrestling magic.
One boot to the stomach and a double arm DDT later, and you're both laying on the ground. And now the DX corporate battle really kicks up. The referee is trying to restore order. And then something unbelievable happens. The glass breaks, and it's arguably the loudest pop in WWE or maybe even wrestling history. Here comes Stone Cold Steve Austin on his way to the ring, brandishing a steel chair. He'd been off TV for a few weeks at this point, but his return here and the pop is unbelievable. At the time, did you think that your title win is sort of the backdrop to the Austin return? Did it take away from your win, or is it all a great story and a great moment, as you said?
No. I mean, I'll readily acknowledge that my victory only received the second loudest pop in a 20-second time span, and I'm okay with that. I don't think it took away from it at all. I mean, you put the same factors into play at any other time, and maybe it'd be like he couldn't win a title on his own. He needed Steve Austin or anyone else with a steel chair. I could see why that might affect someone's look at that match, but at the time it seemed like a great idea, and I think history bears that out. Yeah, I think Steve was happy to be a part of it. Rock will, back, at least up until at least a few years ago, Rock would go out of his way to acknowledge that match. Most people don't go out of their way to acknowledge a loss,
right?
And he was really proud to be part of it, thought it was a really important part in wrestling history. And, and then it's that rivalry set the stage for the stuff we did later as the Rock and Sock Connection. So I don't think anyone left feeling like they'd been cheated in Worcester or across the nation and the world when it aired on TV.
It really was an incredible night. And you wrote this in your book. For years, I never believed this could happen. I'd been respected by my peers and even idolized by certain fans, as witnessed by the Foley as God signs that were gracing the Centrum in Worcester. I'd shed blood on 5 different continents, and I'd taken part in what were arguably some of the finest matches ever seen. Still, I'd wrestled for 15 years with the knowledge that I didn't look like a star, let alone a champion. I'd learned to accept and even love my role as the lovable loser who somehow never wins the big one. And I can honestly say that before that day of December 29th, 1998, I never believed it would happen, but it had happened, and the reaction was heartwarming. I mean, this is like a dream come true. Like, this is what you wanted when that old footage that we saw on TV of you jumping off of a roof of a house. Yeah. I mean, you envisioned being the WWF champion, and now it's happened here just a few days after your favorite holiday. I mean, this is a real Christmas miracle for you, no?
Yeah, pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. The only downside is that when I finally did make it back to Boston that night, the Blue Meanie was outside. There was no room at the inn that night, Conrad, and I had been counting on celebrating my victory with some late night room service and maybe a film with an adult theme.
Got it.
And instead, one king size bed, it's me and the Blue Meanie as I lay awake due to his snoring and farting. I could have picked a better way to end the night, but I couldn't have picked a better night. It was really, really special.
That just feels like the most Mick Foley possible way to celebrate. Blue Meanie snores and farts. What a symphony.
Oh, you're talking about the film with a slightly adult.
By the way, one of my favorite moments of that night, obviously I love seeing you run around the ring and you're so excited and DX has you on your shoulders. But when you grab the mic, it's almost like your Rocky moment. You know,
It is,
at the risk of not sounding cool, I want to dedicate this belt to my two little people at home, Dewey and Noel. Daddy-O did it. Was that something that was, man, I hate to use this phrase, was that in the script, or are you just sort of freestyling and riffing here?
Yeah, definitely freestyling. And it should be said that right after the victory, hundreds of thousands of people turned back to Nitro. I think the ratings bore that out, which meant they had a show people wanted to see. And they just, didn't play that hand too well. No, that was me just emoting. And I did not tell my children, Dewey and Noel, just had the two at the time, that I won the title. And so they were watching. Monday night was the only night that they could stay up that late. And we were in Central Time Zone, lived in the Florida Panhandle, which is, as you know, Conrad, that's Central Time Zone.
Yep.
And so it was only 10 o'clock, and they were so excited. I broke out the Winged Eagle title belt, and they were running around. Like, it was just a joyous experience for the Foley family. Wasn't until I watched the WCW replay when the kids were asleep that I heard the butts and seats, and it hurt. It genuinely hurt, and it hurt a lot, especially given that I'd never been on the upper end of that WCW pay scale, not even close to it. I worked hard, and it didn't feel right. But in retrospect, when the tale of the ratings was told, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. So I got over that hurt pretty quickly and recognized what had happened as being, a game changer. And I'll go so far as say a life changer as well.